So ultimately, following Jesus in the ways of God's kingdom has a lot to do with how we deal with power, giving up of power, and how we think about power dynamics. I'm going to first do the thing that I think it's easy for all of us in this context, what we think about. When we think about power and its connection with culture and society, we often think about money, sex, and power. Richard Foster says money, sex, and power. He said those words. I was really thrilled that Richard Foster said the word sex, but yay! Money, sex, and power. He says no issues touch us more profoundly or universally. No topics cause more controversy. No human realities have greater power to bless or to curse. No three things have been more sought after or more in need of a Christian response. The thing about power is that, of any kind, power dictates our motivation, our identity, our purpose, our decision-making, our community, and our worship. That's the thing about power that Jesus, I think, is trying to contend against. When we think about the ancient world, we think about how different, in their context of talking about powers, they're not talking about money, sex, or authority, power. They're thinking about other gods, right? There are gods of fertility, agriculture, weather, or war, right? It was a belief that any of these things were probably for my better good than Yahweh God, right? That's who Yahweh God was contending against, right? And that sounds like just an ancient ideology from an ancient world, but when we think about our own culture today, we can easily see that any of these kinds of gods, whether it's money, sex, or power, or authority, are still at play. If you look at any city, any town, any village, any sort of community, you can see through what people put their resources into, social media, what's the biggest news on the newsstand magazine. Most of our desires as a culture and society boils down to sex, money, or power. So what feels like the hardest thing to give up in following Jesus is power, right? The next slide. So culturally, we just went over that. We should just flip through. Giving up power from a culture and society standpoint, it's money, sex, and authority. Next slide. But I think Jesus wants to get to the heart of it. What does it mean to give up power for us as personally, right? Pressures that grip our identity and purpose. I want to be certain things. Next slide. I want to be really popular. I want to be really productive. Or I want to be really, really powerful. I think these kinds of powers, these powers in our culture today probably grip us more than many other things. If again, power is defined as something that dictates our motivation, our identity, our purpose, our decision-making, our community, and our worship. If Jesus is not that power, or the kingdom of God and participating in it is not the thing that dictates our motivation, our identity, our purpose, our decision-making, our community, and our worship, then something else is. And if you can't relate to any of the money, sex, power, authority, decision-making stuff, then you're still not off the hook. Because Jesus actually wants to contend with our hearts.